Hello and welcome to New Money's second ever video explainer. In this series, I'm going to be breaking down a few key financial terms to show you that money's nowhere near as difficult as you think it is. Anybody can understand it, and it really is the key to changing the world for the better. Now, in the first video explainer, WTF is ESG, I broke down ESG, which is environmental, social and governance, and at the very end I threw around some more fun financial jargon, active and passive management. I thought that it would be worth breaking these things down because these are actually two big terms that get used a lot but don't really mean much to people out there in the real world. Now, essentially, active management and passive management are two ways to run an investment fund. An investment fund is a collection of investments, and that might be company shares, it might be debt, sometimes a bit of gold or property thrown in. Most of us will be an investment fund, especially if we have a pension, because all pensions are invested using funds, typically speaking. So, active management is run by a human being, and passive management is run by a computer. And that's kind of it. Okay, I'll go into it in a little bit more detail, but that really is it. It's just that a human oversees active funds and a computer oversees passive funds. Active funds are more expensive, passive funds are cheaper, as you would imagine. Now, the pros and the cons of each, especially when it comes to responsible and sustainable investment, is that in active management, you can keep an eye on your investments, especially the companies that you're invested in, whereas in passive, you can't, because a computer's just tracking whatever it's been told to track. In passive management, it will typically be just the biggest companies in the world. Sometimes they'll be a little bit more bespoke than that, but essentially they'll just be set to track the biggest companies in any one index, like say the FTSE 100 or the S&P 500 or the MSCI World, and these are just all collections of the biggest companies in the world. In active management, there will be different styles. In responsible investment, for example, you might have an active fund that only invests in solar energy, or an active fund that only invests in wind. So that manager is going out and looking at companies in that area, deciding which are the best ones to invest in, which are going to make the more money, which have a better impact, a stronger impact on the world, or whatever it is that he or she decides that is the most important thing for the fund. And they're going to keep an eye on that. Now, that's really important when big scandals come up, and you're able to, hopefully, if you're a good active manager, spot that ahead of time and get out. A good example is Volkswagen. In 2015, despite Volkswagen being one of the world's biggest, most well-known and trusted brands, it was uncovered that in fact they'd been rigging their emissions, and that caused a massive share price crash. I think they're still paying fines. They've certainly paid billions already, and some active fund managers that were keeping an eye on what was going on, they were able to get out in time. So that's ideally what you're looking for, especially in sustainable and responsible investment. It is tricky to do really effective, sustainable and responsible investment through passive investing, especially through funds that just track the biggest companies in the world, because the biggest companies in the world are still oil and gas companies, big banks, big pharma. So it is pretty tricky to be a truly responsible investor when you're doing passive investing. As I mentioned just now, passive investing is super cheap, which is why it has become very popular over the past 3 to 5 years. Passive funds you might even be able to get for something as little as 0.2% a year, so that's the fee you would pay to be in a passive fund, whereas an active fund might be more of an average of 1% a year. But of course, if what's most important to you is investing in companies that are doing positive things for people and planet, then you might not mind paying that little bit extra, but that will always ultimately be your decision. So that's it. Active and passive management, run by a human, run by a computer. I hope that's made sense, and if you like it, please do give us a like on our YouTube channel or give us some feedback on social media, and hopefully we'll see you for the next video.